What's up, Badger fans? Let's talk football, optimism for football, where Wisconsin kind of is in the financial landscape of college football, and biggest worries for this football team. We're doing a little buy or sell with Mr. Curtis Holland. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in as always. Y'all are incredible. Thank you for helping us build this incredible Badger community. We got a returning guest today, and somebody I really enjoy talking to, Mr. Curtis Holland. He is the grandson of Wisconsin Badgers Sports Hall of Fame running back, Lou Holland, Sr. Curtis, welcome back to the show. You've been on a couple times, but talk about your grandpa just a little bit again and kind of reintroduce your connection to Wisconsin for those people who haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So my grandpa, he grew up in Racine, Wisconsin, farm boy. He played football at University of Wisconsin from, I believe it was, I want to say 59 to 63. So he was a senior running back on the 1962 Rose Bowl team that we lost to USC. Kind of growing up my whole life, I've been in and out of Wisconsin. I'm actually from Illinois originally, but my grandpa obviously playing at Wisconsin. My mom's side, both my grandparents are from Madison. My mom's from Madison, and then my dad, Lou Holland Jr., also played football at Wisconsin. So, my whole life I've been going up to Madison. It's kind of like my second home, and obviously went to school there. I think last time I said I was there from 2010 to 2015, and I stayed a extra year or two because it was such a good time. And I've just been a lifelong Badger fan and lifelong connections to the football program and everything that goes on in that school there.
Well, let's get into it. So we've got a lot of basketball content on the show, but it is time to talk more football. And one of the things I think Badger fans are, we talked about this a little before the show, are kind of consistently pessimistic about, might be the best way to put it, is how Wisconsin stacks up in kind of the financial world of this era of college football, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think kind of in general Wisconsin is in this landscape?
Yeah, so obviously, college football is going through a lot of changes right now, and the future is really uncertain. And I think a lot of times, a lot of that uneasy feeling and that concern that where the Badgers stack up is tied to that uncertain future of college football. That said, I do believe that Wisconsin's actually in a really good position that's set to benefit from a lot of these changes, even if college football might not be the same as it was over the last 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years or so. And there's really two reasons for that. One, Wisconsin's actually in a rather large market. As a state, we're in the upper half of states in terms of population. We have a lot of, attention in that way, a lot of natural fan base. We have two major financial centers. Well, I guess 2.5 if you count Milwaukee, but Chicago, Minneapolis, right on our borders. And we have a really successful and strong alumni base that's bigger than I think a lot of people realize. And, all that kind of combined with the fact that we are in the Big Ten, we're one of the, upper half to upper third of top producing schools in said Big Ten. We're one of the top institutions in the Big Ten. We're of immense value to that conference. And with all the new deals going on, I don't see a future in which Wisconsin is cut out of what college football becomes. Now, that said, I do believe college football is changing, and I do believe that it is going to affect a lot of things moving forward. And, with that said, I'd be remiss if I said I wasn't, reminiscent of what was, the kind of the old school, the school, the buy-in from the players and things like that maybe once was 20, 30 years ago. But that doesn't mean that I don't think what's going to happen down the road is going to necessarily erode the entirety of college football.
It's interesting to me. People are 2 points I've made on this. The first one is, and I want to get your take on kind of both these points. The first one is, the more things change to me, the more they stay the same to some degree. Like, Wisconsin has always kind of been in this upper tier level of college football, right behind the real blue bloods in terms of facilities and coach spending and assistant spending and recruiting budgets. I don't think that really changes necessarily with NIL. And the other thing I would point out is last year's recruiting class was really good. So it's interesting for people that are really worried about Wisconsin's spot in the NIL world. I feel like the early results will show you that Wisconsin is pretty competitive there.
Yeah, and it is twofold when it comes to recruiting, right? You really have what you're kind of seeing is two models play out. You're seeing, a model in which you have, people wanting to pay for their players or teams wanting to pay for their players, in NIL, right? And that's going to be, ever since the gateway was opened that players could get paid, this was always going to be something that came about. But the reality is you can pay for a player. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the best performance out of said player. One of the things that when I used to actually, this is years back, but I used to actually work at the Chipotle in downtown Madison. And one of the things we talked about with our employees, we wanted to create a great work environment. And the way you did that is not necessarily by paying someone the most money. We had people that actually had better jobs that actually came and worked with us. And the reason they did was because, when they were there, they felt like they were part of a team. They felt valued. They felt important. And we were working toward a goal. And they knew where they fit in that path to work toward the goal. And that goes to the other half of recruiting for football is, can you get a player who's bought into what you're trying to build, at Wisconsin specifically or at any school? That to me is more important than the money. Obviously, the money matters, but if you have a vision for where you're trying to bring your team to or what you're trying to do, which I think Luke Fickell is phenomenal at, and if you listen to any of the interviews of our players, they say the same things. If there's a shared vision and you know how you fit in that shared vision, you are more motivated to contribute to that team. And I think the greatest example of that is you look at Texas A&M. They spent $21 million on a recruiting class. This is well documented. Over half that class is gone and nothing came of it. And Texas A&M fired their coach last year. Like, just because you can outspend everyone and get the highest rated class, that doesn't guarantee anything. You just spent $21 million on nothing. And so now, guess what Texas A&M is doing? Not spending $21 million on a recruiting class, right? Because they learned. And smart institutions will learn. But I think that at the end of the day, you can play this game and like, oh, we lost a guy because we weren't willing to give him 800,000 instead of 400,000. That's going to happen. But if that's his highest value, is that a guy you really want on the team? And I think that's the angle that a lot of the, if you listen to kind of, the NIL collectives and how they talk and sort of what's kind of going on behind the scenes, that tends to be the sentiment that you hear from them.
Let me ask you this, shifting it to this year's football program. Obviously, we had one spring practice, more coming up. It feels like, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but it feels like a lot of people in the Badger fan base are kind of in a hit the brakes, wait and see, we're not sure. What is your optimism level? What is your hype level, whatever you want to call it, for this year's iteration of football coming into the spring?
Yeah, so ironically, I'll say my hype is probably similar last year's. I might be a little different, but here's why. I was very hyped last year because not only was I excited, like everybody else was probably overly excited about everything we had coming on in terms of the new stuff and new systems and everything, but I also believed that our schedule last year was very weak. I think I underestimated a lot of the teams we were going to play, specifically Iowa. I have a habit of underestimating Iowa.
Same.
But I think that a lot of my optimistic was sort of played into that. Like, yeah, it's new, but we're playing a schedule that's manageable and we can beat that. This year, I actually feel like coming into the season, it's like, okay, we made some mistakes last year. It was very clear. It's evident. Everybody's talked about it. We all kind of know what the mistakes were. The thing that I really liked about this staff is they went and they addressed them. They went to go fix them. They went and got some new linebackers. They went and, hired some new coaches that maybe are more in line with what Pickle's trying to do. You can say that's revisionist history. You can say whatever. I do think that there was probably more emphasis put into building alignment and more knowledge as to where they are now and what they had than it was a year ago when we were hiring coaches. So I think that these coaches will naturally fit in line more with what we're doing than last year's was, just based on experience. And so you go and you address those changes. You listen to Luke Fickell in his interview with Jesse Temple talk about how open he was about the fact that we got 3-4 games in the season, realized that our idea for our defense wasn't working, and we made a mistake and we misevaluated some things. And so, obviously at that point, it's kind of late to fix it. I know the defense wasn't great last year, but because they on the back end saw that, they said we need to make changes. They went into the portal and made those changes. And so I feel relatively optimistic that I believe we're going to have a better team this year. Now, does that mean we're going to have a better record? I think I mentioned this before. It's tough. We got a really tough schedule this year, some more difficult competition. I'm curious to see how it'll all play out. But I do feel like optimistic that the team is going to be improved. I don't think that people feeling optimistic last year and not optimistic this year is really a barometer on, really where the team is. I think that's human nature. You're like, well, I was maybe a little over optimistic. Now I got to be under optimistic, balance it out. I don't want to be one way or the other. But I think, in this particular vein, I think we are in a good spot to make some noise this year.
It feels like people feel the need to self-correct, right? Like I was wrong last year, so now I'm going to self-correct and move over to this other lane. And I just don't think last year has a ton to do with this year. I think last year was almost like a standalone version of it's year one, and a lot of things were changing. I think I'm not going to let last year determine how I feel going into this year. I guess is my bigger point. And I think you're mentioning that as well. Like last year's optimism hasn't, and maybe the disappointment from that hasn't meant that you can't be optimistic about this year's iteration of this team.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, keep in mind Luke Fickell's first team at Cincinnati was 4-8. His second team was 11-2, right? I mean, like things like that happen. Now it's Cincinnati. I know it's a lower level. I know everybody don't come after me talking about it. Some group of five level. I get it. I'm just saying that these things are possible. I mean, you look at what Washington did in 2 years. They went from I think they were like 2-9 or 2-10, in 21, and they were playing for a title this year. Like those turnarounds can happen, right? And I think that I'm not saying that we're going to do that. I'm not saying that we're even in a position where our schedule is easy enough to do that. It's not. But I do believe that you're going to see improvement. And I don't think that just the fact that we struggled a little bit last year is going to reflect on the fact that we can be or not be successful this year. That said, I don't think I'm going to be as guaranteed to say we're going to throw for 30-something touchdowns and 3,600 yards like I was at the beginning of last year. I'm a little bit more hesitant to make that claim, but that doesn't mean we still can't be a good team.
I was there on that claim too. Listen, those shows are still up there. I don't take any of them down. People can go find receipts, good and bad. We're going to take one more quick break. Take a quick break for our friends of the show. Come back with Curtis. Talk a little bit about, in particular, what he wants to see from spring football, maybe positions, players, that kind of stuff. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. Is your bracket busted? Are you tired of the same old daily fantasy grind that doesn't seem to be any different than the thousands of other competitors? You got to check out Better Together. Listen, life is better with friends. It's better with compatriots, compadres, teammates, boys, girls, whatever it is. Get your crew together. Check out Better Together. It is the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs talent. And together, you can play with your friends, not against them. Pick more or less on real-time player stats. Strategize with your partner to boost your odds. Climb the leaderboard together because it is better to celebrate together. It is better to do these things together. It's better to do it cooperatively. You're not just like huddled around your own little phone checking out things. You're doing it together with your team, your bros, your whatever it is. So grab a friend and join the social daily fantasy sports movement. Download Better Together now from the App Store. Sign up using promo code Locked On for a chance to win your share of $1,000 in cash prizes. Remember the code Locked On because winning alone is fun, but it is better together. Today's episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at Amazon Fire TV. Again, this product that I use, that I like, that I enjoy, that I use daily. Just plug your Amazon Fire Stick into a smart TV Alexa device, and you're able to get access to all the sports that you want, most college conferences, baseball coming up, plus other entertainment options, cooking shows, adventure shows, gaming shows, millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. They've also created Fire TV channels, which deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us over at the Locked On Network, so you can get more of us with Amazon Fire TV. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV, your sports destination. All right, let's get Curtis back up here. Let's talk a little bit about what do you want to see from spring? And I've had a couple shows where I've talked about positional groups, newcomers. What are you really interested in?
Well, one of the things I'm interested in is the early enrollee freshmen. I think we have kind of came back. I think 247 said this was our highest ranked aggregate class of all time by like 0.2 or something like that, something crazy like that. So just edged out the I believe 21 class, but I'm really excited to see kind of what they provide and if they can provide some juice, and start to ring the table. Because if you start to look at our roster down the list, we got a lot of people that are going to be gone next year. And so can some of these new guys sort of step up and step into a two deep and maybe make an impact this year that will help our team moving forward. So I'm excited to see, how a lot of them play. I'm also really excited to see, how our quarterback and receivers start to come together, because obviously I think the first practice they talked about how Tyler Van Dyke and Braedyn Locke are the top two players. Sounds like they've both made a lot of improvement. Sounds like Nick Evers has made a lot of improvement too in the offseason. So I'm excited to see sort of how that plays out. I think that I don't know. I won't say that it's a foregone conclusion that Tyler Van Dyke is the starter. I think I'm one of the few people that maybe thinks that way. If you look at some of the previous examples of this, I mean, you saw the one quarterback from Oklahoma State transferred to Ole Miss last year, only to be beaten out by Jackson Dart. you saw Spencer Sanders, that was it, got beaten out by Jackson Dart after he transferred. You saw Tyler Buckner transfer to Alabama to be beaten out by Jalen Milroe. Like, just because you're bringing in guys, it doesn't necessarily mean they could start. It could provide depth. Right now, I think if I was a betting man, that Tyler Van Dyke is going to be the starter. I think he's just got more experience, a stronger arm. He's played enough football to really take the lead in that role. But listening to Longo in his interview with the camp the other week, he seemed to really emphasize. I mean, he really likes Locke,
He
and
does.
it sounds like, and then listen to Brady Collins. Locke made a ton of improvement in the offseason, right? And I think that there's been discussions in the group about the quarterbacks and who should or shouldn't be quarterback, and I think when you look at what Locke has done, I mean, I cannot really put into emphasis how much it means that he, in the highest level of high school football, Texas 6A, set the state record for passing yards in playing against Division I athletes every single day. I mean, I know we keep referencing one of our crowd favorite, quarterbacks who went on in one state and is a great leader in his own right, and has unfortunately, been injured for a lot of his camp, Cola Crew. But one of the things, the school that I came from too is we had a lot of state championship high school teams with a lot of quarterbacks who willed their team on to state titles, and they went to play in college, and they never played in college because they were on a really good team that was able to take advantage of a year and win a state title. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to be able to take advantage of a time in college and win there. And so, not to say that, he doesn't have that opportunity. He could 100% do it. I'm just saying that, like, when you look at what Braedyn Locke has done in his career and, what Tyler Van Dyke has done in their career, I just don't know if it's necessarily all the way set in stone that Tyler Van Dyke is the for sure starter. So that's why I'm really curious to see kind of how that plays out. And, in a week or two when they come back and Tyler Van Dyke is shredding them and, Braedyn, struggles a little bit and maybe Nick Evers, I could all be wrong. But that's just kind of where my head's at right
No, one of the things I like about having you on the show is you are an independent thinker. Because most people, and I myself included, have kind of written this off as this is Tyler Van Dyke's thing. But listen, if Braedyn Locke plays a lot better than him, outplays him, the coaching staff, there's a you got to play the better player. And Braedyn Locke is a guy who I think, because of his, I would say his performance last year was a little up and down, which should be expected as a freshman. And he was inserted into an Iowa game, an Ohio State game. Like, he was put in some really tough spots. And I think people saw that and kind of mentally wrote him off a little bit, where most freshmen were shaky in that spot.
I was going to say, and that's a tough thing to do. I mean, he is, and I will say he is a little bit, I don't say undersized. That's not fair. He's bigger than me, but but at the same time, he's not the biggest quarterback in the world. And yeah, I mean, he's a freshman. He's going to struggle. Like, that's, and at the same time, it's not like he was practicing with the team, for first reps the whole season. Like, I'm sure he got some backup reps in to get some familiarity, but they're giving, Mordecai the lion's share of the opportunities in practice every single week because he's going to be the starter, right? And so he steps into a situation. He wins a game at Illinois, which, for all intents, we should have lost. He plays admirably against Ohio State, easily the best defense we played all year last year, and Indiana was a, bad game, but everybody involved in that game, it was a bad game. So it wasn't just on him. So I look at him as, he's a redshirt freshman. Like, what can you ask from a redshirt freshman that's not named Trevor Lawrence? Like, I don't know what you expect out of that. No, outside of Trevor Lawrence, maybe I'm trying to think of what other redshirt freshmen really tore it up. CJ Stroud, I guess, Justin Fields. Like, CJ Stroud was rookie of the year in the NFL. I mean, like, who are we comparing him against? It's just tough to see it like that. And Badger fans, look, I'm going to say something that's going to be controversial. I know, I'm sorry. We don't have a CJ Stroud at quarterback right now. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
Right. So, so I think that Braedyn has a lot of opportunity to make some noise. I'm not as fearful, I guess, for the future of the quarterback position, especially too. I think that Matoyer is going to have a lot of upside. I think he could be someone that could be really good for us too. So I'm optimistic about that, but I am really curious to see, like I said, the quarterback competition, to where the guys stack out at the end of spring.
Well, let me ask you that one more on the quarterbacks. What is it? Does this feel like the last stand a little bit for a guy like Nick Evers or even a Cola Crew? Because if Braedyn Locke continues to get more reps as the number 2 and continues to gain ground, the more reps you get, the better you get, right? He's not going to give up ground if he gets more reps. And then you have Mabry Metoyer coming in, and then you have the younger Locke following in their footsteps. This feels a little bit like the last stand for LaCrew and Evers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the new portal rules changed how you can transfer, because I know as of last year, if you transferred, you wouldn't be able to transfer again until you graduated technically. And I don't know where those kids are at from a graduation perspective. They're both going to be redshirt sophomores. I'm talking about Locke and Evers. They'll both be redshirt sophomores this year, which technically they'll be juniors in academic. So I don't know if they'll be close to graduating or their major or whatnot. And like I said, I don't know if the rules change. So my understanding that if Evers doesn't graduate, he can't transfer because he already transferred once. Like I said, I could be wrong about that. I don't know that for off the top of my head. But
I think they changed it so they can transfer again now. I believe.
yeah, so
But
then if that's the case, then yeah, I think it's at a point where you need to make a decision. Now, in the past, I just having known people on the football team, it wouldn't have been out of the realm for them to just stay at Wisconsin, because Wisconsin was just a great place to be at. It's a great school, great academics. Some good things to do on the side in addition to academics. You get to play for a team. Be part of a family that you like. There's an opportunity that there's a chance that that might be what happens to some of these players. But I think that if, let's say, Braedyn Locke really does take a step, or maybe Matoyer happens to jump some of these guys, then yeah, if they want to play, they're in a place where they might have to make a decision. And the reality is, I think we will see a transfer out of the quarterback room. If not, at the end of the year next year, we might even see something as early as the spring, depending on how things play out, right? And here's the thing: that's okay. This is the first time in a long time where I really feel like, hey, our quarterback room is going to be okay. Talk to me 2 years ago, I would have been losing my mind right now, because I would have felt like we have no future in quarterback whatsoever. But right now, look, we're in a good spot. We got a good guy coming in 25. Matoyer's coming in 24. We have Locke, Evers, LaCrue. I think between those three, one of them will come out on top, and whoever comes out on top is going to play at minimum as good as Locke did last year. So like those are things where I feel confident about the future of this room going forward. But that said, I think a lot of it also falls on the team itself, because next year is going to be a very young team, a very inexperienced team, no matter how you slice it. So it'll be interesting to see what the staff does about that going into the offseason.
Yeah, I like your point on that one, because I actually, without having said it, I feel pretty good about the quarterback depth for the first time in a long time as well. Like I think you can look at each one of these quarterbacks and pull something out that I really like about him, and I really like about him, and like about him. And it's been a while since you could say that about 2 or 3 different quarterbacks on a Badger roster. I think it's a great point. All right, we're going to take one more quick break, come back. I got some worries. I'm going to kick it to Curtis, buy or sell in these football worries. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at Nissan Motors. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan Motors. And each week, we're going to talk about one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it a little bit further than the rest, just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level, and we are definitely talking about the Yukon Huskies. They are the Armada. The one seed is a monster. They're as hardcore as it gets. They've destroyed 2 teams. They are absolutely incredible. They're a wagon. And that is why they are similar to that Armada, taking that adventure one step further. They're the favorite. They're picked by many to be the favorite to win the national title because of what they can do right now. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada. Go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. For those families wanting to push it a little bit further, find your next big adventure. Shop now at NissanUSA.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. eBay Motors combines passion, drive, patience, everything you need to keep your ride or die alive. Go to eBay Motors. Find your part. There's over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. No more fumbling with different parts or talking to people who don't really know what they're doing. eBay Guaranteed Fit is going to make your life way, way easier. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers, but you're guaranteed the right part, the right fit, at the right prices. Eligible items only. Exclusions to apply. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Let's get Curtis back on. And once again, as always, man, humbled to have you on here. I really appreciate the conversations. I want to kick you with some worries that I have, that other people have had, and you buy or sell these for the football team. The first one, and I think this is my biggest one, I think the defensive line is a potential problem here. Buy or sell?
I'm buying that, man. I mean, but I think this is the most obvious one. I think it's just a lack of depth. I mean, we just haven't recruited that position at a level that we've needed to be at a really highly competitive level for the last few years. I mean, the guys that we got, I like them individually for what they are. I think James Thompson Jr. is going to be a solid end for us this year. I think that Kurt Neal is going to be a good nose for us this year. I think Howard's got a lot of upside. I like oh my gosh, the guy that we brought in, like Ernest Wooler. I like
Mhm.
him a lot. I think he's going to be solid. I mean, I'm intrigued to see TJ Bowlers in the defensive end position, and then I know we got some other guys too that I'm not naming off the top of my head, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're not going to win a national title with two D linemen. That's just not going to happen. I think that's, I don't think that's a shock to anybody. I don't think anybody would disagree with that statement. I think that the main thing we just got to do there is continue to recruit, continue to put bodies in there, recruit through the portal. The struggle is that's just the toughest position to do that for. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm buying that.
Yeah, I'm buying that one as well. Buy or sell. This is one that a lot of people have talked to. You spoke to it kind of briefly in an earlier segment, but I'm going to let you expound here a little bit. Buy or sell. The amount of coaching turnover is worrisome, either because the correct people weren't hired or the university had trouble hanging on to the right coaches.
I think it's just a sign of the times. So I'll say that is it a problem? For now, I'll say sell on it being a problem. But I think that I think this has been the wildest coaching carousel in the history of the sport. We're not immune to this situation. I mean, Ohio State's running back coach just left Ohio State to go to Michigan.
Wild.
I mean, like it's a wild cycle. Like, and I think that I think we talked about this a little bit in the last video we did. I think some of the people that we brought on, I'm excited for them. I think they're great fits for what we need. I think the staff has had a year to sort of figure out, hey, what's the team culture here? What culture are we trying to build? Where do we need help? Where can we provide some juice? And I think they went out and they got some guys that can do that. I'm excited. It sounds like Kenny Guyton's already making some moves in some potential recruits that it looks like might be crystal ball to us. AJ Blazek's already making a name for himself, and the team seems to really respond to him well. Sounds like based out of practice reports that our new D line coach was out there getting after it. So I'm excited about that. So it sounds like we got a lot of good guys coming in that I'm excited about. I feel like where I was excited last year because everything was new, I feel excited this year because it feels like the fit makes sense. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really well said. I think, and again, I think we talked about this offline. You can get better and worse in a lot of different ways. Like it's never going to stay static, I guess. Like you can be
Mm-hmm.
upset that maybe you lost Hitchler, for example, and brought in Grinch, but maybe you're better at I'm just saying hypothetically, maybe you're better at the receiver spot and the offensive line spot. I like individually the pieces here. I do think from a consistency standpoint, you can be losing 4 coaches probably every cycle, even if it's more common.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in year one, this makes more sense. I think I would generally sell this as well. My last one is here, and I'm going to figure out the best way to word this, but I think the Badgers team is going to be better this year, but the schedule will also likely be tougher. Buy or sell, do the
Mm-hmm.
Badgers actually have to win more games to get the fan base positive, optimistic going forward? If the product on the field looks better, but the record's the same, buy or sell, the fan base will feel better.
So I'm gonna say hesitant buy, and the reason is because I feel like a lot of people who may be a little bit more deep diving into college football, more of the college football super fans kind of space, they'll feel like, hey, we saw a lot of improvement and this team looked good going into next year. I feel good about it. I think the staff, I think the university itself will say, hey, I feel pretty good about this. I think we're making moves in the right direction if we've improved, and our record's still 7-5, despite the fact that we look better across the board and have made a lot of improvements. But I think the general fan public and kind of the general, the college football casuals will look at as they'll see the 7-5 and they'll just say, hey, they didn't improve from the season before. And it's not because they're disingenuous or they don't know football. They're just not as tightly wound into this stuff. A lot of old fans, I mean, you talk to fans who've been, had season tickets for 30, 40 years, they remember the times when we would roll right over Northwestern like they weren't even there. They remember the times that Wisconsin could go to Ohio State and win on a consistent basis, or go to Michigan. And even though Michigan, was the team, we could beat a Michigan, on any given Sunday. We'd only lose by a couple points as opposed to multiple scores, right? And those kind of memories, when you're only exposed to Wisconsin football, 12 weekends out of the year, like those kind of memories are tough to break. And they're not the ones, listening to all the practice reports and listening to all the scouting and, knowing what's going on in college football. All they see is that 7-5. And they wonder why we're not running the ball out of the I formation. You know what I mean? And so I think that you would see the general population be a little bit uneasy, especially now, we got an outsider running the program. So, I think there would be some at minimum fan malaise if that were to happen. But I don't think it would be enough to really change anything within the actual athletic department, because I think that the people who are making the decisions would see if there was improvement in the 7-5. I mean, maybe we're 7-5. Iowa's 11-1. All the other teams we play that are good teams are elite and in the playoffs. Like, I don't think anybody would be too upset about that if they were, really paying attention.
Yeah, I agree with you on the administrative side. I mean, they've gone so far all in on Fickell. Chris Mack. When I say that, I mean Chris McIntosh and that
Mm-hmm.
group. That they're. I think they would be fine with it, even if publicly it was a little frustrating. I think the general fan base, though, if you stacked 2 7-5 wins seasons back, even with the tougher
There'd be
schedule,
3.
it would be 3. Well, yeah, I'm thinking with the Fickell though, like you
Yeah.
replaced a guy and then you didn't go with Leonard, and that was a controversial move in the moment, even though everybody
Mm-hmm.
was mostly on board with Fickell. But then if he comes in with the hoopla and the new recruiting staff and the marketing, and they stack back-to-back 7-5 years, I think they got to win 8. I think they got to get a little better in the win-loss
Yeah,
record.
I think especially for the fans, I think that's if you want to win the fan base over, if you want to win the positive comments on Instagram over, that's what you got to do. You got to improve there. That doesn't mean, like I said, it's a reflection of where the team is actually at, but I mean that matters. And recruits see those things, and the national college media sees those things, right? So those I do think that is important, and I do think that if we do have a similar season to last year in terms of record, I do think you're going to see some fan malaise.
Yeah. And by the way, it's only one game, but eight wins is a lot different than 7 wins. It feels like that's a tier jump when you go from 7, then you get into like 8.
Yeah, 8 starts to feel more positive. A lot of times 8, oh, 8, that's an up and coming team. It's an underrated team. You start to see a lot more of those as opposed to overrated. You'll see at 7-5, all that team's overrated. Like that's kind of where it's kind of like the cutoff, I think, is like between that 7-5, 8-4 area.
Yep, I agree.
But yeah, I mean, I like I said, I feel optimistic. I feel like the way our schedule sets up, it sets up as good as it could, based on the schedule we have. So, we'll see how that all plays out.
I love it. He is Curtis Holland, again, Playmaker127 over on the Discord. Always great to have you on, man, and definitely look forward to the next time we get a chat on the show. Thank you to everybody who listens, as always, on Wisconsin, and we'll talk later.